I'm very excited to be here. I'm honored to be able to speak to you all. Um, I don't want to take time to go through names. I'm not that great with names. I certainly know a few of you. If you ask a question, maybe you can give me your name. So, but then I might not recognize you behind the mask when we get to finally take these off anyway. So, let's see. Let's just launch in. Here's a little cartoon that kind of summarizes some of what I'm talking about. Okay, so they stopped collecting customer satisfaction data, and all of a sudden they feel like their customers are more satisfied. Doesn't make much sense. So people may recognize this. This is where I spent the last 26 years of my career, Kaiser. This is the addiction medicine thing at Wyatt. So, and I'd like to start by telling you a story about working there. So probably about 12 years ago, a young man came in, or young to middle-aged man came in, actually happened to be the husband of a Kaiser surgeon. And he had a chronic illness. He had a chronic illness that was known to be painful, and he was taking too many pain pills. He was running out early. He was going into withdrawal. His pain was not well controlled. There were many issues in his life, and I saw him when he came in, and he was. I thought that we developed a good rapport, and he did not show up for his follow-up appointment a couple days later, and he kind of got lost to follow-up until about 8 or 9 months later. I noticed his name on the schedule of my colleagues, and ultimately he became a client of one of my colleagues, and that was for whatever reason. I don't know if anybody's experienced that before, but it kind of hit me right here. You know, I thought maybe, gee, maybe he just wasn't ready, maybe he was in denial, but I took it personally. I said, in some way I must have failed him, and looking back, I wish that, even to this day, which I still think about it, I don't know what I did wrong. And by the time I sort of recognized him coming back, I couldn't necessarily ask him, gee, why didn't you like me? So that's feedback episode number 1 that I'd like to talk about. And then feedback episode number 2 involves, so this was actually last Sunday. This is not the Poke restaurant that I went to, but this is what, sort of what it looked like. And so I was out and about around lunchtime, and I decided to take a moment and go in and have some lunch. And even though it's a Poke restaurant, the crispy chicken bowl kind of shouted out at me, and so decided I'll do that. And by the time when it was my turn to order, the young man behind the counter, he kind of barked at me. He said, "What do you want for your base?" And I said, "Well, I'd like the crispy chicken bowl." And he says, "But what do you want for your base?" And I said, "Oh, I'll take the brown rice." And he said, "What toppings do you want?" And so I looked up at the menu board for the crispy chicken bowl just to see what toppings it had. He said, "No, don't look up there. Look down here. These are where the toppings are." And I said, "Okay." I was just looking up to see, what it included, and I asked. I told him what additional toppings I wanted, and he rang me up at the counter, and then a few minutes later came out with my crispy chicken bowl. And as I'm walking out the door, he says, "Have a nice day." And by that time, it was that the "have a nice day" didn't really repair the relationship that he had established sort of early on about telling me what to do, and didn't really repair the relationship, and may not even repair the relationship with that restaurant, even though the food is good. Probably, I actually told this story to the clients here on Wednesday. It didn't even occur. I'm old school. I'm not a young man, and so I was looking for like a feedback card or something at the restaurant, and I know I could have gone on Yelp, but it didn't really occur to me at the time. By the time I remember that I could go on Yelp, I don't know if the feedback would have gotten back to that person in person, or if he, it didn't seem like he'd be receptive to feedback. And so that's feedback story number 2. So what I was hoping we could do, and I know you're all really excited about this, but I was hoping we could pair up and have you guys do a little exercise where you discussed feedback amongst yourselves. So I don't know if there's an odd number or an even number of people here, but maybe we can pair up. If we need to have a trio, we can do a trio. And so these are just some suggestions of what feedback situations to think about. So a time when you perhaps wanted to provide feedback but didn't for whatever reason, a time when you gave feedback and were surprised by the reaction, a time when somebody gave you feedback that you were surprised by or maybe didn't receive it well, a time when you got feedback and it led to something actually useful. So, and I don't know if you guys have, I have paper to give you because I have some questions that you can stay focused on. I was hoping to have it be a speaker and a journalist where one person tells their feedback story and the other person kind of records things. And so I have here a list of questions. Don't pay attention. I'll hand these all out. So I know who that was. But. So if you guys can pair up, and maybe we'll take like 10 minutes to That's a very interesting statement, and we'll get to that. And it sounds like you collect informal feedback, by asking them, which is a really good thing to do. What we're going to end up talking about later is actually collecting formal feedback, right? Which is the measures that how many of you have heard about me and these measures? Okay. You love it. Patients are like, what is he doing? What? Any other examples of feedback from your life?
My point of view sometimes is I can kind of tell from body language or responses through talking to them in my sessions that they don't want any feedback, or they're kind of not, like they already know what their plan is, or they already know kind of what they're going to do. So it's like, do I say the thing that they don't want to hear, or do I just not and kind of leave, like, not cause any conflict from having to say that like, elephant in the room kind of thing, with regards to their spouse drinking, or, their job is, bartending or whatnot. So this is just specifically work related, but, it's like, are there times where you just don't give the feedback and just kind of, because they don't seem receptive?
So it sounds like you struggle in situations where you want to give them feedback because you have strong feelings about what's going on with them, but you know that they're not going to be receptive.
Yes.
And probably there are times when you do that and it doesn't go well.
A lot of times. So so sometimes I'll pick and choose. You know what, it's not really worth kind of going down that road. I think I'm just gonna not say anything, and and then I see them back. So I go, should I have said something that last time, or do we just kind of let them make their own mistakes and be ready, kind of meet them where they're at when they get there?
You have a thought?
I feel like sometimes giving the
What's your name?
Oh, sorry, my name's Javante. But sometimes I feel like giving the feedback is important, but touching back up after giving it. It kind of it gives them the time to think about the situation and think about it and let it sink in. Because a lot of times, I get that after Vicky puts it down and tells them what they need to hear, and then they come in the office and talk to me about it, and I'm like, but is she wrong? Like, what do you, like, in a just a little more, think about it. Like, okay, but okay, what if we do go back? What if that's just like, so I kind of like try to play out situations with them using what she says, but in a little
Nicer.
softer way. But at the same time, like, a lot of times they say, like, I know she's right, but just the way she put it. And I'm like, but you heard her, right? If she would have said it to you nice, you wouldn't have heard her. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's just retouching back up after giving them that criticism in a rough way is just impactful because it makes them realize or see, like, okay, she's not just being raw, she just cares and wants me to get it. Yeah? That makes sense.
So I have a whole bunch of thoughts about that, and we probably need to move on. No, I mean, because I'm pretty sure we can take the whole rest of the time talking about it. And I would say that that feedback-informed treatment is really about aligning yourself with the client's agenda. And I realize that you and all of us really, we oftentimes have an idea in our head of how patients can recover, what they need to do to recover, and we wanna get in there and tell them. And feedback informed treatment is about aligning our agenda with theirs, because as we find out frequently, if our agenda is different and we don't meet them and we're kind of coming to them from above, it's not necessarily received well. So I struggle with the same feelings, like, I know what I want to tell you to do. And sometimes, if I'm going to do that, I ask permission.
Yes, I did.
The motivational
Like, do you
interviewing
want my 2 cents
technique.
or not?
Would it be okay? Well, even that is a little bit loaded. So it would be more like, would it be okay if I shared an opinion with you?
Okay.
And that gives them the opportunity to say,
Yes.
most of the time they're not going to say no. Most of the time they're going to say, okay. They might say, I know what you're going to say. But at least you're asking permission before you. So, okay to move on?
Yeah.
So this is my last slide.
Yay.
So you guys can-
Thank you.
Finish line.
Thank you.
So the reason why is that it helps. I mean, it helps our clients. It helps them stay in treatment, stay connected, stay engaged, and can reduce costs. It doesn't mean you have to abandon any of your other methods, or your beliefs about how people change, because it's what's called pan-theoretical. It's not a model like CBT or DBT or 12-step facilitation. You can use it with any of the other things that you're doing with your clients, and it's different. I mean, I can tell you, it can be kind of awkward. I'm sure you've heard that from the clients. That, I don't know why he's giving me these measures, but and clients, it's different for them too, because in essence, it's having them step up and take an active role in what happens. It's not just like, here I am, take care of me. We want you to be active, and so it can really help us stay grounded and keep us from getting,
Do you ever give them feedback if they tell you they're not excited about your group or they don't like your disposition in the group? And do you ever give them feedback on, well, I pretty much see that you're checked out, you haven't said anything, you haven't participated?
I would almost never do such.
Okay.
I mean, that's just not my style. I mean,
No, but would that be appropriate if it's somebody who just, I can think of a few clients who have, complained to me frequently about the groups, or I don't like meditation, I think it's whatever, and I'm not happy with how it's being led, but it's like, we don't give any feedback on how we can, when I'm like, okay, well, what can we do to make that better?
I mean, it's just, I'm just going to talk off the top of my head. It's my belief, they already know that stuff. They kind of already know what we're going to say. You're going to say, I'm falling asleep, they already know that stuff. So I'm not going to repeat it to them because for me, it sounds like I'm getting defensive.
Okay.
And for me, that's not a getting defensive. when you're receiving feedback is it's almost a lose-lose, right? Because they're gonna get more entrenched and I'm gonna get more entrenched.
And what if they don't give you any feedback on how to improve? They're just like, improve.
Well, that's where the conversation is really important. So, can you give me some specifics? I mean, I had, one of the things that I worry about a little bit. I mean, people seem to like my groups.
Mhm.
That's the feedback I get for the most part, and I'm like, I don't want you. I don't want you to feel like I'm needy. Like I need you to tell me that I'm doing a good job. So it is not an easy skill, and I'm not sure that I have learned it well to get and receive negative feedback that's meaningful. So I would just keep the conversation going. So specifically, I know you said you don't like it, you're checked out, you don't like the topic. What would you rather? This SRS thing, the goals and topics, the means and methods. Did I feel understood? Listened to, understood, and respected? That there's good fodder right there. You scored me. You scored a 6 on goals and topics. What would you rather be talking about?
Okay.
Kind of going back what.
So, Will,
Yes.
I don't have a good answer for you. I do believe that the process, this feedback-informed process, is the best way to get clients to confront each other and talk about their differences. And maybe I can talk to you offline more about it.
So we need to move on to our meeting agenda. So thank
And-
you.
How was this?
It was great.
That's good. We learned a lot.
I'm not going to collect formal feedback, but if you have any thoughts or ideas, let me know.
Okay,
Oh.
guys, we're gonna try to plug through so that we can